The hottest places in hell have been reserved for those who remain neutral in times of crisis. If we don't rise to the occasion, well, we can all just go to hell. Today is the anniversary of something that happened exactly 69 years ago. Does anyone remember what it was?
Germany invaded Poland.
Right. An extreme, rabid nationalist regime, at the time the sole superpower in the world, with an acquiescent populace, with a co-opted church or churches, with not only justices, lawyers, military, but also religious leaders swearing allegiance to this rabid nationalist regime, started World War II. Before they could do this, there was total suppression of their population at home. No freedom of the press, most people put in jail if they tried to do the kinds of things that Amy Goodman does as a matter of rule. I've just been given information that Amy Goodman and 2 of her people are in jail as we speak here. They've been in jail for 2 weeks. I'm sorry, 2 days, 2 hours, 2 hours. They were arrested at 5 o'clock, doing their duty as reporters. So we're at that point, folks. We're at that point where even the likes of nationally celebrated heroes, in my view, like Amy Goodman, is at risk for pursuing her profession as a journalist, and is in jail as we speak. Now, there's a big question as to whether the Russians or the Georgians, that wonderful fellow Saakashvili, whether he was encouraged to do what he did. Now, it's not so simple. You can't talk about these things in simplest terms anymore. You know why? Because we have two governments. We have the State Department that used to, in my experience at least, run our foreign relations with the direction of the president, and the other center of power now is the Vice President's office. Okay. And so, the State Department, I am convinced, did try to talk to Saakashvili and tell him, look, we're not going to help you out if you get involved in a shooting war with Russia. But what did he hear from the Vice President's office? I don't know, but I suspect, and based on everything I've seen Cheney and his minions do, I suspect that he was, perhaps explicitly, perhaps implicitly said, go ahead because we'll stand behind you. Actually, Condoleezza Rice even said some unfortunate things in that direction. So I just have to say this, it's one of the big blessings of that we veteran intelligence professionals for sanity have, is that we're on the receiving end of all manner of contributions, thoughts, analyses from people who trust us, from people who consider us the real deal and share information with us. And I say this because just yesterday I received a very thoughtful piece from a diplomat, now retired, who spent 3 tours in the Soviet Union and knows the Soviet Union better than anybody I know. And he pointed out all the things that the Russians have been looking at: the encroachment of NATO, the putting of anti-missile missiles in Poland, and radars in the Czech Republic to protect from Iran. What does the intelligence community say about Iran? How soon could they get a nuclear weapon? 3, 4, 5 years? How long has the intelligence community been saying that? 15, 20 years? It gets a little embarrassing. More so when last year in November, the intelligence community came out with a shocking revelation, and that was that in 2003, the Iranians stopped working on the nuclear weapons-related part of their program. Wow, that's not what the president was saying. That's not what Vice President Cheney was saying. Pretty gutsy thing. Now, how did the president react to that? Well, he went to Israel and he said, well, I have a different view. I have these 16 intelligence agencies unanimously saying, but I think they're working on a nuclear weapon. I have a different view. And so when you look at the Russians, or you look at anyone, they trying to analyze our leadership, okay? Analyze what makes our very unusual president and vice president tick. Well, they can't be sure of anything, folks. They can't be sure of anything. And that contributes to a very, the Germans say labil, a very dicey, a very uncomfortable, unpredictable strategic situation. Who started the war in Georgia? The Georgians. How did they start it? Shock and awe. In the middle of the night, bombarding civilians in that little town that I can't pronounce. Okay? And you know, there are witnesses there. There are Americans that came back. This one American was interviewed by Fox. It was a teenager, and she started to explain how she had to go down the cellar when they shelled, and then the Russian troops came and brought them to safety. And right when she's about to say Russian, they had a station break, and it never got on the air. Now, I'll just take this moment to say that I've been around 45 years in Washington. There's one sea change that dwarfs all others. And that is that we no longer have, in any real sense, a free media. That is big. I'd just like to say one other thing, and that has to do with Iran, which Scott and I have been right on the same page about for years now, okay? I think he would agree that the only thing that has prevented us from attacking Iran has been the professional military. Starting with Admiral Fallon, who was sacked in March, and now Admiral Mullen. If you hear Admiral Mullen, you know, he gets up at this press conference after he's been in Israel and he says, you know, the last thing we need is a third front. We don't need anything to cause instability there. So any nation that would cause that instability should think twice about it. Now, who's he talking about? Two nations come to mind. The United States of America and Israel. Whoops. Not supposed to mention Israel in polite conversation.